Hello, boys and girls. I have a very interesting game that I want to share with you, a historic one. Now, this was played in the year 2000 when one Garry Kasparov was at the height of his powers. He is, many claim, the best chess player to ever grace this earth. One could argue it's him, Fischer, or Carlsen, but definitely Kasparov is one of the most exciting, if not the best player to ever play this game. And around this time he was very near the peak of his career in the year 2000. And this game was played in Sarajevo in 2000. Yeah, like I would say 2000. And yeah, the situation, this was the last round. And Kasparov was playing against Sergei Movsesian. He was leading with half a point ahead of Shirov and Adams. And as it happened, both Shirov and Adams won their games. So it was very important for Kasparov to win here, to be the outright winner of this tournament. And this game, it's a very nice Sicilian game featuring an exchange sacrifice that you have to know about if you play the Sicilian. And a very, very important game from a theoretical point of view of playing the Sicilian. But it also has a very funny story. The thing was, a year before that, in 1999, FIDE held its first World Championship where it was a knockout event. And the event was won by Alexander Kalifman. And at some stage, I think the semi-final rather than the quarter-final stage, Movsesian made the quarter-final stage. And at some point, Kasparov, he sort of dismissed the tournament. The tournament was full of upsets. And he basically said, it's just a bunch of chess tourists. So it didn't really, give the tournament that much of a meaning. But of course, he had already formed his own, PCA, the Players Chess Association, I think it's called, where he had a championship match against Nigel Short. So this was the FIDE World Championship, so of course he's going to dismiss it. But since then, famously, and he might have reiterated it before the tournament, that he referred to Movsesian as a chess tourist. And this has been a long, a long-standing joke. So chess tourist is not a compliment. It means that you are not among the absolute top players. But okay, let's move on to the game. Sergei Mushegovic, Movsesian. Before we move on to the game, we have to talk about Movsesian. Okay, chess tourist, but you cannot take one thing away from him. He's very strong. He's been over 2,700 on many occasions. And he's also a very, very nice guy. I played with him in Iceland. This picture is taken in 2007 when we won the Icelandic Team Championship. Movsesian is on the far left, and I'm the one with the scarf next to the trophy. And every time me or other Icelanders meet him at the tournament, he's always all smiles and always gives time to catch up and have a chat. And he's a big Manchester United fan. If you like Manchester United and you need somebody to root for in the chess world, it's hard to find a nicer guy. Always smiling. And maybe even smiling after this game. Let's see. So he had white and Garry, legendary Kasparov with black. E4. And of course, what does Kasparov play? He was renowned for the Najdorf. Against D4, he was a champion of both the King's Indian and the Grunfeld. But this is an E4 game, so let's stick to that. Knight to F3. D6. We have the open Sicilian. Knight C3 and A6, the Najdorf variation. Now this was around the time that the so-called English attack was at the height of its popularity. And back then everybody went bishop E3, E6, F3, B5 and Queen D2. So this is the way that white would set up. He would castle queenside. and then pawn storm with g4, and depending on circumstances, g5 or h4, g5, in some order or another. Kasparov goes on with development, knight b to d7, long castles by Movsesian, and bishop to b7. So for the moment, Kasparov is not touching any of his kingside pieces. He is instigating action on the queenside first. And after g4, which signals a kingside attack. Now this maneuver, which I sort of associated with Kasparov, it's knight b6. And the idea of this is twofold. Well, first of all, once you play rook c8, it's kind of nice to have this knight. They can jump into c4. It targets the a4 square. If you play b4, it takes away the a4 square from the knight. And perhaps more importantly, when white pushes g5, we can push our knight to d7 safely. Before knight b6, we didn't really have a nice square for this knight. It would have to go to h5. But now, after knight b6, it can go to d7. Movsesian plays here first queen to f2. And this has the idea of, well, simply taking here and then picking up the undefended knight. And therefore, preemptively, knight after d7. Not waiting for g5, but knight here to protect this knight. Okay, king b1 now, because always play king b1. King b1 is a very, I don't want to say popular, it's a move that's often played in the Sicilian. I mean, the rook almost automatically comes to the c file, and you want to get out of the line of fire, and also get out of tactical tricks prophylactically and preemptively on this diagonal, although that's not as common. Rook to c8, bishop to d3, and here it is. And this should be a stock standard idea that you should know in the Sicilian, and if you ever have this opportunity, you should make this move almost without calculating, on principle. So having said that, what did Kasparov play here? Kaka! Yes, of course, he played rook takes c3. Very well done indeed. B takes c3. And how do you follow up? Well, the most obvious move is knight to a4, but Kasparov, he wasn't in a rush. Garry played queen to a7. c7 actually. Okay, this attacks the pawn, but we don't necessarily want to take it. This is also, you know, the queen is on a half open file. We support c4. It's notable that you sacrifice the exchange and you're not in a rush to do anything. Okay, knight e2. Seems useful to cover the pawn. Bishop to e7. Still not going knight a4. Knight a4 was a very viable move. G5 now by Movsesian. And yeah, it's clear that the only home for the king really is the castle. So at some point, white has to get going. G5, and you're ready for h5, h4, h5, and maybe g6 to try to attack the black king. But despite g5, Kasparov castles because this is the only home for the king, like I said, and he wants this rook to join the attack from the c file or the b file. h4, because what else? You have to get done with the attack. Because now, I mean, your king is exposed because of the exchange sacrifice, and black is coming for you. Knight to a4. Bishop to c1 by Movsesian, leaving the c3 pawn to its fate. But should you take it? Kasparov didn't. Why didn't he take it? Well, sometimes taking pawns is detrimental. And in this case, while it's very playable, you sort of give the initiative to white. You take on c3, knight takes c3. Queen takes. And now bishop b2. And all of a sudden, what would you rather have, white or black? Now this bishop is on this diagonal. You're ready for a quick attack soon. Something on the g file, protect the pawn, and then push. g6 or h6, probably g6. And okay, okay, but okay. No, it's no, you know, not so clear. So very notably, Kasparov doesn't take the pawn, but he invites people to the party. Kasparov always invited all his pieces to the party. And now he plays knight to e5. Another move was available here. And we'll actually cover it after the next move, h5. And now Kasparov plays it. A very typical break in the Sicilian. Another stock standard idea. And usually if you can play this in normal Sicilians, you will equalize. But here it's more than that. It's, you know, trying to open things up for your pieces. So what did Kasparov play? He played the move pawn to d5. This is just giving scope to your pieces. Now this bishop is ready to help the attack on the queen side. If you take, you're just bringing this bishop to life on d5. And in many cases we are ready to have some tactical operations on e4. So all in all, you know, great news for our pieces. Sergei thinks, okay, he must get on with it. Queen h2, try to counterattack. It looks like this is why it's best bet to put something on the h file and then try to open things up. Also, pinning the knight, but now bishop d6. And you have to spend another move on your queen. Could you play f4? It seems to undermine a lot of things. And indeed, we can just take on e4. You take here, and then I take on d3 with a double attack. This is very, very good for black. Movsesian played queen h3, but maybe he should have played queen g2. And the idea of queen g2 is to just add extra cover to the e4 pawn. But he played queen h3. And now after knight takes d3, we see why the cover on e4 could have been useful. If you were not to take on d3 with a rook, I can simply take on e4. And our bishop comes to life. So c takes d3 was played. And now another typical Kasparov move. He was a great attacker. How do we open lines, get things going here? Nicely posted knight, queen on open file, this can join. Bishops, okay, one or two moves away from joining the fray. But Kasparov finds a very, very powerful move here. Vintage Kasparov, can you find it? Assuming you paused and you came back. The move he played is pawn to b4. Like I said, typical Kasparov, just trying to blow everything up, blow the position open. Now you can't allow me to take here. This would open the b file. I can now call in the reserves, put the rook on the b8, threatening c2. You can't do it. So c takes on b4. And now rook c8. This was Kasparov's idea. We're trying to come in with a jack here, and this will be hanging. And it's not so easy to meet this threat. If you play rook d2, I can play bishop takes b4. And you have to find some difficult moves to even, you know, put up a fight. But this is very difficult for white. Or maybe queen here, but then bishop back. And now having taken on b4, we have more open lines. It's very tricky. Movsesian went with king to a1, which looks like it is safe for the moment. But Kasparov, he finds the moves. D takes e4. Okay, if you don't take, then I'm just equalizing the material, and yeah. And it doesn't look like there's any danger like f takes e4, what's going on. White is at the exchange. And actually a pawn as well. The pawn we sacrificed on b4. Okay, we can win it back. But Kasparov, no, he had other ideas. A fantastic move. And this one, it's hard to find because it's left field. You expect you're not expecting this one. So if you want to give it a go, go ahead. But I will now reveal the move. Kasparov played. Bishop takes e4. What? Fantastic. Okay, g6 was played, but what on earth happens if d takes e4? It's a good question. Bishop e5 check. First thing to note, king b1 is met with mate immediately. So what to do? Maybe interpose? Yes, but I take. You take, and now back rank. Boom! Boom shakalaka! This is just fantastic stuff. Kasparov and his calculations, just mind-blowing stuff. Movsesian, he tried to squirm, or counterattack with g6. But now we can start recouping some material and keep our attack going. And that's what Kasparov did. He took on h1. Queen takes h1, because if you were to play rook takes h1, remember our theme from before? Bishop e5. Again, king b1, queen c2 mate, and d4. Bishop takes d4, and it's still back rank mate if you take. Knight takes here, queen takes here. So therefore, Movsesian had to take with the queen. And now bishop takes b4. Now we're coming in. Bishop b2 is coming. Bishop c3. What to do? Movsesian took on f7. And now another important Sicilian motif. Okay, he took on f7. If he takes on h7, you put the king in the corner. You use the white pawn as shield. And Kasparov does the same here, king to f8. King is absolutely safe. This is just shelter for the king. I mean, it looked like pawn takes. Okay, at least you're opening up something, but you still need more time. So now white is actually completely lost. I mean, material is equal. That's the only good thing, but that's only temporary. Queen to g2 was played. Rook b8. Now this is a deadly threat. Knight takes, queen takes, and we have all these guys bearing down on b2, so he can't interpose anything, and the rook covers the b file. Bishop to b2. But now knight takes. Okay, the idea here was knight to d4. But it's too little and certainly too late. Knight takes d1. Very vintage Kasparov. He goes for the fancy finish. Alright, we're losing the queen. It's okay, everything under control. You gotta love Kaspi. Now, actually white resigned. If knight takes e7, simply bishop c3, and we pick up the queen. And mate in a few moves. And the other, queen takes g7, king takes e6. And we're up rook and two minor pieces. Black easily escapes the perpetual, there's no perpetual. And queen takes c7 is met as before with bishop to c3. And to make matters even worse, you're already down on this material. And you're also getting checkmated on the next move, so nothing to be done. So a fantastic game by Kasparov, and one that you have to know as a Sicilian player. So thank you for watching. Leave some comments, subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you in another video. Thank you. Bye bye.